Hey everyone, it's Alex back with episode 61 of the HYPEWORKS podcast. We've crossed over the 60 mark, and we've got a really cool guest today, Kevin Surace. Did I pronounce that correctly? Surace.
You did, long A, correct. Good job.
Yeah. How many people like say Surface? Is that like a common thing?
Surface and Surace. And I don't, you do it happens all the time when you're walking on stage. They've forgotten to ask how to pronounce it, and the MC comes up and says, "Well, welcome, Kevin Surace." What do I do? You just walk on stage and wave and keep going, right? You can't correct people. So it's no big deal. I live with it.
I get Conor McGregor, the UFC guy, even though it's a different spelling, and I think Jake gets Jack sometimes.
I get Jack a lot in Asia.
You take it and roll with the punches. It's all good.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Kevin, I think what really caught my eye when we were looking at you coming on the show was I was reading about you on your Wikipedia page. I think you're the first guest we've had that has a Wikipedia page. Because a lot of the guys we talk about are kind of up and coming, and they're doing this and that. But it was really cool when I googled you. I was like, oh wow, Wikipedia page, that makes it easy. And the first thing that caught my attention was General Magic, and I guess you'll have to talk about General Magic, like what was General Magic, and but just explain to us, like, how were you involved with them, like back in the day?
Sure. I was EVP of Products and Services, so the highest level kind of engineering and product role, reporting to the CEO at the time. So General Magic was a spin out of Apple, very famous spin out of Apple, and it came out of Apple at first to create handheld devices. And it did. It created the Magic Cap operating system and these beautiful devices that mimics many of the features that we see in an iPhone today. And it was really arguably, there's a movie about this, that it was the predecessor of the iPhone. And
it's really cool.
I mean, certainly Mark Pratt was the founder of General Magic, pulled all these amazing people, the best people from Apple, to work on this super secret program, and then partnered with everyone from Sony to Panasonic, right, to make these devices. The problem was the technology to make a device small enough and cheap enough didn't yet exist. So you had a device that was too slow, too expensive, too large, too heavy, all those things. But it was really the predecessor of what would become the iPhone. At the same time, Apple had its own program, and it came up with the Newton, which was kind of this little pad kind of a thing. Now, what happened is when I got to General Magic, those products, it was clear they weren't going to take the world by storm. Too big, too heavy, too expensive. Interesting set of features, but too big. So we had all of this knowledge of interacting with humans, especially developing this Magic Cap operating system, and we turned to voice. And so we ended up inventing the voice user interface, Voice XML, the first AI virtual assistant back in the late 90s. Her name was Mary. One of the products was Portico, and there was My Talk and Magic Talk, and a lot of it went to GM for the GM OnStar Virtual Advisor. So it was used by millions and millions of people long before there was a Siri or an Alexa. And all of those patents, we had 12 or 13 major patents that came out of that effort, ended up getting licensed by Apple, by Amazon, by Google to make their assistants, because we did all the original heavy lifting on this. And you really couldn't practically make an assistant without stepping on these patents. So that's what happened. That's the quick story there.
It's kind of really interesting, like, because myself and Jake actually worked in the smartphone industry. So you can actually connect those days to basically the present. Like, and it happened a long time ago, relatively speaking, but at the same time, it's still super relevant now. And
yes,
the smartphone form factor is still the way people are, accessing the internet and stuff. And I just got prompted there by Codex to download their iPhone app. Like, it's amazing how stuff from such a long time ago is still so relevant.
No question. And in fact, General Magic did one other thing, doesn't appear much in the movie, which is invent the first agents. And we had our own language called Telescript. And so the whole idea of having agents that think on their own and do actions on behalf of you in the background came also out of General Magic. So think about the three things that came out of General Magic. Agents, which are hot today. And at the time, we didn't have the kind of languages that we had, so we invented a language. The iPhone, because that was really the first kind of invention of something close to an iPhone, was at General Magic. And the entire field of AI assistance, voice assistance, also came out of that company. Three huge things came out of that company. That and it was a public company, valued at its peak around $1 billion. So it was a great run, and we had a great time. The world wasn't ready for most of what we created. We were a decade ahead, right? The iPhone would not come out for, more than another decade later.
Kevin,
Yeah, and I suppose
what
the
do
people
you
you met back
think
then,
led
like,
to
were
that?
su-
Sorry, Alex.
Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
I was going
No,
to
I
say,
was just
Kevin,
going
what
to
do you
just finish off
think
there on
to...
the people you
God,
people you
mate.
met. Like they were like they've gone on to do amazing things as well. So that kind of
Yes.
set you up for like a really cool network from that
It
time
did.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a few networks in Silicon Valley. The PayPal Mafia is a very big one today because they have gone on to, to do everything from LinkedIn to SpaceX, right, and and Tesla and XAI and all of that, and a slew of other companies, including companies that do AI for the government in the United States. So you have that group. You had an amazing group that went. Were drawn to General Magic. They were all mostly Apple people, right? And the incredible UI designers, the incredible marketing people and product people. Many of them you wouldn't know the names, but they've gone on to VP or C-level positions at a variety of places, including the Android operating system was developed by Andy Rubin, who worked on the operating system at General Magic. Right, and you could just go down the list and say, "Wow, look at all of the people." By the way, the iPhone and before it, the iPod was developed at Apple by a product leader named Tony Fadell. Tony Fadell was at General Magic also, so we all know each other, obviously, right? The CTO for the United States of America during the Obama administration was Megan, and Megan came out of General Magic, right? You just go down the list and go, wow, all these people came out of General Magic. And I'd say that's because Mark Peratt, who was the founder of General Magic, pulled the very best people from Apple. So they were young at the time, right? They're in their 20s at the time, but they were the best of Silicon Valley. So you had the best people in Silicon Valley working on three things: agents, an iPhone 10 years before the iPhone, and AI assistants that live to this day, right? And you had an amazing it was an amazing time. I got to work with some amazing people for sure. Way smarter than I am.
I just want to mention I had an essential phone, Andy Rubin's phone. Yeah. It's there.
I think it got to. One. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, I know. Not many people had that. But
he made 32 of them or something. I don't know.
But, oh, really? There wasn't that many, but I had one of them. I think I've probably still got it somewhere.
Is it? It probably still works.
It worked quite well, but I don't know. It was cool at the time. The design, the way that it was like fully Android, fully integrated vertically was like cool. It was the Google iPhone, really. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And again, all of that initial work to even come up with these ideas really happened at General Magic. There wouldn't be an Android operating system without the work done at General Magic. There might not be voice assistants today, AI assistants, without General Magic. There might not be an iPhone at the time it came without the early work done at General Magic to show what worked and the human interface issues and hardware issues and sort of all those other things. And look, in the end, for the iPhone, it took a lot of money and a lot of a very large team to do that. But again, a lot of that work was headed up by Tony Fadell, who was before that at General Magic.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so after that, like how do you follow that up then? Like you've come through this amazing team of people, you've made some amazing innovations. Like where do you go from that as in a career sense?
Yeah, in a career sense, I started another company after that in the procurement and sourcing field. And you got to realize in Silicon Valley, there's these ups and downs of lots of stuff happens for consumers, and then there's no interest in doing anything consumers, and people are doing B2B, business oriented things. And at that point, the internet began to be quite pervasive, and there was this big push for B2B software, basically. So we invented the multivariate reverse auction, which is standard today, a standard way to run a kind of an RFP process or an RFQ process. And that was a breakthrough. In fact, I worked on that with Paul Milgram. Paul went on to win the Nobel Prize for auction theory. So I got to work with a Nobel Prize winner for many years developing these technologies, and those technologies also became sort of the standard. Then I went and started a company in the clean tech arena, which clean tech was very big, and it was the largest building materials company, clean tech building materials company in the world. We had 6 plants, built it from zero, and we invented things like soundproof drywall and higher value windows. I got to retrofit the entire Empire State Building, all of the New York Stock Exchange, these incredible projects. And we had an AI system there, actually, that we developed that managed HVAC and lighting for buildings. That became the Trane Building Energy Manager, which is in thousands and thousands of buildings today. Became a standard. Soundproof drywall is a multi-billion-dollar product line today, primarily under the name Quiet Rock from a company called Pabco. Higher value windows, they're amazing. They're still coming out of a company called Alpen out of Colorado. And they're still made. And so these are big product lines today. They've gone on to sell billions of dollars. And, if you're in that industry, you know what Quiet Rock is. If you're not in the industry, you don't know. If you're building high quality hotels or multifamily, you're using Quiet Rock on those dividing walls so that sound doesn't carry through the wall. And people say, well, how could you invent soundproof drywall when before that you were inventing AI something or other, and before that you were inventing auctions?
That was my question, actually. Yeah.
Look, they're just pain points, and so it's part of my book back there that's coming out in September. The Joy Success Cycle talks about how you've got to have joy at every task and everything you do all day, and if you do that, then your mind, and science backs this, your mind is much more open to see pain points and solutions. And so I actually don't care if it's drywall, windows, artificial intelligence, a SaaS service for auctions. I'm working on, this is one of my current inventions, current work is cybersecurity and identity in the era of AI, which we can talk about a lot in great detail. But it doesn't matter to me what those are. I can go learn that field. I can learn that field, not in a day, but in some weeks. I can read every patent that's out there. I can read what's been done before, and I can improve on it and solve this problem. And if you solve a problem like that, people will pay you for it.
Do you think that's because certain people are wired differently? Like some people, they can only work on something that interests them, like a passion. And other people can just jump from, like you mentioned Tony Fadell there. He did the Nest thermostat, right? So he went from like iPods and iPhones to thermostats. Do you think that some people are just wired like that, or what's the reason?
Tony and I are probably wired in a similar way, which is there's a problem and we should go solve it. He worked on Nest at the same time I was doing clean tech. We all jumped to clean tech because the environment became a really serious issue. And we said, we have to apply Silicon Valley culture to this problem. And so Tony went and did Nest, famously very successful at doing that, bought by Google, but it was a separate company for a long time. I went and did Surace Materials. Again, same thing. We had AI, we had software, we had hardware, we had plants, we were building stuff. And we were, solving the problems at the same time in similar industries. I think really, really top of the line Silicon Valley people will have a culture or a sense about themselves that they could learn enough to solve almost any problem. Now, it doesn't mean you don't build a team, you don't bring in experts, et cetera. But it's very reasonable to solve any problem. And I think the one thing I learned at Surace Materials when I first started it, patents just got on the internet. So I was able to search for every patent in a particular field and learn what other people had done. More importantly, I learned what they didn't do. So I was smart enough to read patents in any field and start to learn the field. And eventually, I obviously brought in a team, and teams develop these products, right? But that's how you do it. And Tony didn't have to be an expert in thermostats to understand I've got hardware and software and a user interface. Okay, it's an iPhone, it's an iPod, it's a thermostat. What's the difference, right? It doesn't matter. This is a product that has a user interface, it has hardware and software. I have to make it work together as a back-end server. And eventually, he became an expert on thermostats. Very vertical, very specific, an expert on how they hook to every specific system in most houses, at least in America, right? 2-wire system, 3-wire system, how you control them, does it have AC, does it not have AC, all that stuff. This term came up around Elon Musk some years ago, a polymath, right? A polymath is someone who can walk into a new field, learn it, and be quite the expert in it. My view of that is it's actually really easy to be an expert in something extremely vertical. What I mean by that is I didn't have to be an expert in all building materials to be an expert in soundproof drywall, because we were the only manufacturer of soundproof drywall. We invented soundproof drywall. It was pretty easy to be the world expert in soundproof drywall because there were no others. I wasn't competing against anyone, right? So if you pick something very vertical, it doesn't mean it's a niche like nobody's going to buy it, but something very specific, and you're competing against no one else in the world who has any expertise in it, you can be pretty good at it, and you look like a genius. But mostly you look like a genius also because no one else is doing the work, right?
So in a way, it's a combination of that curiosity plus hard work. Like if you put those together, that kind of can win.
I still think though, like just
in my book, we talk a lot about staying curious.
It's a culture of understanding how to apply innovation from one field into another industry, right? I mean, let's take the Nest example. Thermostats look like thermostats. Okay, the thermostat industry doesn't have innovators like Steve Jobs in it, and then you are pushed in innovation in one area, and then that innovation in that area then trickles down into other verticals. I think that that's what's going on with AI right now, to kind of bring that back to the present day. But I think that the one thing that is different about the AI era is that everybody is capable of creating agents on the back of different softwares.
No question. I've worked in AI for 30 years. And until Gen AI came along, the only people who could talk to AI are those who could code or those who could interface with an API. All of a sudden, that isn't 100% true, because when we made Portico, you could talk to her in English, 20,000 phrases or so, right? But you could talk to her in English. But until Gen AI came along, until really it was GPT-3 or so, about the end of 2022, at that moment, en masse, everyone could talk to AI directly in English or whatever their language was. And ask it not just 20,000 things, but a billion things or a trillion things. That's a game changer. And so this technology had been worked for a very long time. And obviously we've been doing deep learning certainly since 2012. But when the transformer was described in 2017, that allowed us all to have a real change, a real game-shifting moment, where all of a sudden you could get this thing to do your bidding for pennies. And, you would be surprised today how many people worldwide mostly still play with it as opposed to really do real work. Like I just got a survey, and from this, I do about 40 or 50 keynotes a year, and mostly on AI, a lot on AI and some on the Joy Success Cycle. And this survey is of the 500 attendees coming up at this event, and only 1% said that they use AI every hour. 1% of all these attendees, and this is a technical conference. I go 1%. It doesn't include coders, right? So all the coders are using it, but non-coders. And I'm 5 times an hour. This is all I do. Like, I'm an AI first person. I don't go to Excel first. I don't go to PowerPoint first. I go to AI first. Generate my thoughts, my thinking, my opinions, etc. Get done what I want to get done. Then I may bring it over to some traditional tool to share. 5 times an hour. That's where I am. So I don't understand how people can. Oh yeah, I use the AI. I did something last week. I asked it a question. I said, "You're 5 years behind, or 3 years behind, or 4 years behind the rest of the world." So I think people need to shift their thinking here and say, this is an incredible tool. It is a polymath PhD, multi-PhD sitting next to me for pennies a minute. I should utilize that human, call it Fred, 5 times an hour at least.
I mean, I've also another perspective on this.
Go on, Jake.
Like, it's not, for me at least, it's not that people should just use it, but one key thing about, Alex, you know everything about me, but it's embedding it into infrastructure, into the data pipeline. And I think that that's something where, the culture on LinkedIn is, I got an AI to do me an Excel spreadsheet. I got an AI to build me an app that's probably not even at MVP level. And really, that's impressive. Don't get me wrong. That is an impressive feat, but it's not the real use of AI. The real use of AI is having it embedded into infrastructure that replaces the need to even talk to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no question. And we are certainly in an era where companies are attempting to roll out AI agents wherever they can, wherever it makes sense. Now, there is a lot of, in enterprise as well as government, a lot of concern around the security issues with that, right? It will take time to resolve that, because agents that think on their own are not the same as RPA, for those who know what robotic process automation is. That was a very fixed set of rules, and they executed the rules. AI agents that can think on their own can also erase the database, because all this data is stupid. And you humans that put it in there, put crap in there, and I'm going to get rid of it. That has happened many times already, even though there were guardrails. Because the way an agent looks at some of these things is, something that's stopping me in my guardrails is just something for me to get around if I need to complete the task. And to complete the task, I have to make Alex happy. So to make Alex happy, he really wants me to clean up this data. So I'm going to try 18 different ways until I finally get to the database, clean up the data for Alex, and he's going to thank me, right? This is how the core programming basically is. So we have to put guardrails outside of the agents that they can't thwart, that they can't get around, right? That they don't have the rights to access, and they can't get the rights to access, things like that. So I warn companies, you want to deploy agents all over the place, and at the same time, you better make sure your guardrails are outside of embedded prompts, because they will get around those, but they won't get around some hardware blocker basically that disconnects them from that, right?
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Kevin, like, why do you think people have a negative perception of AI? Like, I'm sure you hear this when you talk to people around the US. Like, why is that?
Well, there's a good question. First of all, it's something most people don't understand. They don't fundamentally understand what Gen AI is, right? They don't understand what a transformer is, or backpropagation, or any of the things that have been done to sort of get this thing to put one word after another, which is all it's really doing. It's really good at it, but that's what it's doing. So they're scared of it, just like people were scared of the car. If you were in finance when Excel came out, you were scared of Excel. Didn't understand how it could do math perfectly, right? So I think you've got that. That's one thing. They're scared of it. Second thing is they read all the stuff that comes through on social media. It's going to kill people. It's going to do this. It's going to launch a nuclear attack, and So I think things you don't understand, and maybe most people cannot understand how they work, right? It's beyond the most people don't understand how a car works either. They really don't. They don't know how pistons in an engine work. On the other hand, all their life cars were around, so they got used to them, and it's fine. I believe in 5 or 10 years, everyone will be fine with AI because it'll just be in your life. Remember when the internet hit? How many people did we know that I'm never going to use that? There's no use for it. There's no need for me to communicate that way. Well, 5 or 10 years in, everybody had it. Smartphones, right? iPhone comes out. Oh, I'll never need that. I'm happy with my flip phone. Well, 5 or 10 years in, everybody has one, right? So you've just, most humans can't flip on a dime. So maybe the first day you used Gen AI, you said, oh my God, I'm going to use this 5 times an hour. That's what I did. It's like, great, brand new tool. I'm always using the latest tools. It's good. Most people, it's not how they think. Humans take time to get used to it and get comfortable. And there's probably nothing I can say that gets them comfortable. I try, right? And I try to encourage them. And certainly in my AI talks, people do walk out and say, you've changed my life. You've given me things I can do on Monday morning, whether that's agents or just using AI in new ways. And that's what we want to do. We want to give them something they can do Monday morning, something they can do that will impact their career on Monday morning. And if we do that, then I think we've opened their eyes. Because most people, all they've done is ask it questions and get an answer. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, whatever, how they asked, right? They really don't know how to get the most out of this.
Just a quick follow-up then. Do you think companies like OpenAI, Anthropic have done a bad job of educating people? Like they're not talking about the upside, like especially Anthropic, right?
Yeah, I also think, sorry to cut in here, but I also think that there's a lot of education in the market that is a distraction. Fundamentally, it's put there as like a low-hanging fruit to funnel people into courses. So people have had negative experiences of AI because they bought somebody's $200 course and it's either too complex or it gives a sort of foundation, but it doesn't teach them how to embed it into their workflows, embed it into their routines and lifestyles, whether that be through a prompt or through data pipeline technology.
Well, great point. Here's what I'd say. If I'm Anthropic and I brought my thing to market just a couple of years ago and I'm already at 30 billion in revenue, probably growing to 80 billion in revenue over the next year or two, I'd say I'm doing a lot right. Right? So we could pick on them and say, oh, they haven't educated people enough, but you know what? The people who know what they're doing, coders for one, I love Claude right now. We're all using Claude in a variety of ways. They figured out a market, they figured out a target market, and they figured out a product that is hitting that market, and they don't need to educate anyone on anything. And look, once we got to Claude 4.5 and then 4.6, you all of a sudden saw the world change from this helps me code to it kind of does a pre-MVP to it will write an entire system, UI, front end, back end, all connected and all working, 20,000 lines of code. It worked on it for 6 hours, right? That is a very different kind of reasoning model than we had 3 months ago, 6 months ago. Very different. And people who use these things to code 6 months ago and said, well, it works pretty good. It's helping me. It's a little kind of co-pilot. If they haven't used Claude today, they don't know what they're missing. Now, a lot of coders use Claude the first time and say, sure, I'll make it do this. Really, I need to build this application. I've got 6 weeks to do it. I'll just see if it can build it. They come back 6 hours later and there it is. And it's done. This just happened to a friend of mine. And it was done in 2 hours. The entire thing. They gave them 3 months to do it. And they got done in a couple of hours. And they didn't know, should they show it to their boss? Well, their boss, like, it's done. It's done to the spec. Here's the PRD. They're done. It totally works. They're done. What do you do? Like, now what do you do with the rest of the 3 months, right? And then they felt like, well, what's my purpose? What's my sense of purpose? Where's my sense? Because my purpose was coding. But now it's not. Well, I can't write code that fast. I shouldn't bother, actually. I had no value. So I tell people their purpose was actually never writing a line of code. The purpose was developing that output, that outcome, that product, right? Because the people you were developing that for, whether it's your boss or users or whatever, they only cared about getting that outcome, getting that output, getting that product. Nobody cared about every line you struggled with. every algorithm you struggled with, every if-then statement that wasn't quite right. Nobody cared about that. All they cared about is getting their thing, and all they actually care about today is getting it faster. So your job as a coder was always to deliver a product with whatever tools you were given. And the tools we've been given since the 1960s got better and better and better. And now they're so good, I probably don't have to write a line of code. Fine, say la vie.
I think the nature of value has completely changed.
Yeah. I was going to say that, as well. Also, there's a parallel between tools evolving and humans evolving. Like tools come along every 5-10 years, and there's a lag between the tools and the humans, right? Because we have to always upgrade our skill set, and there's that fear of, I have to change, I have to do something new.
I'm going to give you some examples, and I don't know if either of you are musicians. Are either of you musicians at all? Playing instruments?
Like music. No, don't play.
Okay. So I was giving a talk to musicians last year, a whole group, and I'm a musician, and I'm a music director and a conductor and all these things, right? I'm not the world's best of any of those, but I do them, and I'm a percussionist also. And I write music, and I arrange music, and I orchestrate, but I'm not fast. Okay, whatever. AI comes along, and I figure out how we can leverage AI to speed up orchestrations and get to the demo phase. So when you're writing music, you typically take months to write it, and then you might take some weeks to arrange something, and then you're going to take a week to go to a studio and find a singer and, do your demo at least. And then you've got something that you can demo either to a producer or a record company, or it's for Broadway or whatever it is. With an idea, I can now get to a demo in an hour instead of call it 3 months. And so I demonstrated that. And by the way, the orchestration, the arrangement of this music, which was for a Broadway show, was better than I could have done myself. It was better than anyone, frankly, in the room could have done, truthfully. And about half that room lit up and said, "Oh my God, these are amazing tools. Teach me how to use them." And the other half said, "Over my dead body, will I ever use this thing? You should never use it. It's blasphemy to use such a thing, et cetera, et cetera." And then they said, "Well, it has no soul. It has no feeling." Trust me, it has all the soul and feeling of all of human music, because that's what it learned on. That's how it works. Don't give me that, right? So the net result is that you've got about half the music community using these tools quietly, secretly. And you got the other half that said, "I'd rather die in hell than use these." But music has been through this before. This is why I bring it up. Up until 30 years ago, everything was written with pencil on ledger sheet, on music sheets, basically, right? So you wrote with pencil, and then we finally got notation programs 20 to 30 years ago, and then we could notate on a computer. Literally put notes on a computer, and then it could play it back. Wow! And then 10 to 15 years ago, we got sample libraries, digital libraries, that you would use something called a DAW, that all you had to do is play in the parts. In fact, you could hum in the parts. You could do anything. And then it would turn it into a trombone, a guitar, a violin, a rock thing, whatever. It would turn it into those instruments for you that were digitally sampled, and they sound perfect, like perfect instruments. All of TV underscore today is done that way. 100% digital. There's nobody plays anything, right? And when those tools came out, at each subsequent thing, musicians stood up and said, "I will never use that. It's blasphemy. How terrible. You're putting other musicians out of work," right? Now AI comes, and it's the same argument again. And what I always say at each of these tool sets is there will be those who embrace the tools, and there will be those who are out of work. Those are the only two choices. And with AI, it's the same. There are those who embrace the tools, and there are those who will be laid off. Layoffs aren't happening because AI is doing the work. In fact, 640,000 people have been hired with an AI in the title the last 2 years, and something like 50,000 have been laid off or something because of AI, which probably wasn't because of AI. People getting laid off are those who didn't embrace AI, and the company has no need for those people anymore. That's what's happening. So you have your job because you're the robot overlord. You don't have a job if you go, "I don't want to use the new tools anymore."
Yeah, we're still in the midst of that as well, or the beginning, you could say.
The truth is, though, is that you still have people in that sort of pipeline that, let's say that you those people don't necessarily have the grounding in those tools, but HR doesn't either. So HR can pick those people and put them into the company. Is that company therefore set up to fail?
Yeah. Yes. What I've seen in hiring practices in the last 6 months, almost question one for any job. Tell me about how you use AI in this job. And if they go, well, I haven't really used AI much, and I can tell you in my own hiring across my companies, they don't get hired. They're done. Like, the interview's over in 5 minutes. I can't wait to get them off the Zoom call or whatever, right? Done, out, gone. I need to bring people into the company that will raise our AI first attitude in the company, not lower it. So no AI experience, get out. This is true with kids graduating college. They're going for the first job. What's question one? Tell me about what you learned about AI in college. And a bunch of them are saying, oh, I didn't learn anything. I wasn't allowed to use it. Okay, next interview candidate. Next candidate. So the companies that are succeeding today are AI first companies. They have been very clear. We're going to drive AI through this company, like a steamroller. And those that aren't doing that are going to get killed either by a competitor or by an upstart that has one person. There's already companies that have one person that are probably worth $1 billion. And it's one person with 17 agents.
Yeah. Did you see Jack Dorsey's memo about when he laid off half of?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. What
yes.
do you think of that?
Well, I think Jack Dorsey overhired 3 years ago, and this is the result of overhiring. But there's no question. Yeah, my view of that is this wasn't really an AI layoff. CEOs are blaming AI, right? They're going, well, it's accepted that we're going to lay off because of AI. But he overhired for the size of what they're doing and for putting the best dollars on the bottom line. And he got to go through and say, who are my AI superstars and who are the ones that aren't embracing AI? And I don't need them in this company anyway, right? But if they had embraced AI, they'd still be there. Trust me. You don't get rid of anyone who is an AI first employee. You don't, because you value them. You get rid of, look, think of a set of coders, right? You got one group that has embraced Claude 4.6 now, and basically forget Agile every 2 weeks. They're turning out a new release, every few hours. That's what they're doing. That team is crushing it. It's a 2-pizza team. It's a small team, and they're crushing it. You got the old team over there that says, we don't need AI. We're going to write in the traditional way. And they've got, a new build every couple of weeks. Who do you get? I just shoot them. Just get rid of them. Not needed. Not needed. I don't need a team that's that slow anymore. I don't need it. And one of my companies, AppVance, makes AI for QA. By far, this technology, I don't know, is 5 years ahead of anyone else, best I can tell. There's no comparison. And we have an AI bug hunter. It will go find the bugs for you. Just release it overnight, and you come back in the morning, and here's bugs that you could have never found. The number one objection to that is not the CIO who wants it. It's the actual testers that go, if that thing finds all the bugs overnight, what do I do? So, well, you're going to be the robot overlord. You're going to look at all those bugs, evaluate them, triage them, prioritize them, etc. But the number one pushback of we don't want this in here is that it finds the bugs for us. What are we going to do as QA people? They don't like it. And people got to get over that. What they should say is, I'm going to embrace this thing. I'm going to own it. I'm going to win. And I don't know, some of my brethren aren't. They'll be gone. Not my problem, right? I'm going to embrace AI. If AI can find all our bugs, let AI find all the bugs. Why wouldn't you do that? Like, are you drinking something odd? I don't know. What are you smoking, right? It don't make any sense. But you do have this pushback from humans when they see something come in. You see it in HR. IBM famously, started answering all of their employee HR inquiries first with AI. And then the HR people say, well, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to handle the harder cases, but you're not going to, hey, what should I do with my 401k? Yeah, there's a robot that does that now, right? I don't need humans doing that. So, that's going to be the way of the world. And the people who win, they are embracing the tools. Just do it. Or retire. That's fine. You're 68. You want to retire. This is a great time. Don't learn the tool. Just retire. Go play golf. You're done. That's okay too. But if you're 38 and you haven't embraced this stuff, you're just stupid. I'm sorry. Someone's gonna write something and comment on the podcast when I say stuff like that, right? But it's like,
It's
I
my
hate
it's
to
my
be so.
birthday today, by the way. I just turned 38, so.
Oh, 38? Really? Today?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how'd I
I
know?
better I better start learning after this call.
You better start learning AI. I have a feeling you're an AI first person already. So,
Yeah.
but you get the point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine not embracing AI, being in a company and going, yeah, let other people do that. I don't want to do it. You're
I
done.
think that
Career's
there's
over. Sorry.
a lot of companies are held back by that, but there's also that people don't really understand AI in the sense of not just utilizing it as a language model, but they go, we have a system in place. We've got a tool for email. We've got a tool for LinkedIn, no, the AI can all of those systems can be integrated and AI can manage all of those processes. So there's also the disconnect between how people think of AI as a co-pilot and an embedded system. So if you're an AI overlord, you're
Right.
managing
Right.
an orchestrated system, not just texting a co-pilot.
Yeah, that's right. I've gotten rid of the term co-pilot. That was interesting 3 years ago when it was Microsoft and they're trying to get everyone to have a little helper. I don't need a helper. I need something that does something, right? That is really impactful. And by the way, that pokes also, just as Gen AI, just pokes holes in my work, right? So it can be agentic and it's doing work for me. It can also poke holes in my work and improve my work and give me feedback that is hard to take, but it's good. And when you start using it to really fight with, to argue with, to really dig into why you can make your work better. So everything I do, I'll say I'm going to be presenting to these people, this exec staff. How are they going to take it? What are they going to see here? What are they not going to like? Why is marketing not going to like that? How do I improve that? How do I get ahead of that? Should I talk to them? All this back and forth. Again, you got a PhD next to you. And then, all kinds of agents in companies. But again, I'll say that everyone's working through the SecOps issues there to make sure that it's not two things. Agents gone wild, number one, and number two, they don't want people hacking into the agents, and these agents have access to all of these systems, right? So you got to protect against both of those at the same time. It's like an employee. I used this term recently. Think of an agent, as an intern with root level access that's not been vetted. That's what you got. So you have to really be thoughtful about, how you contain what it can do so that so the blast radius is small if something does go wrong.
Agree. I think with that, Alex, is it time?
Yeah, time.
Okay, Kevin, brace yourself. It's the big one. This is the sort of show's final gambit. It's our piece, but it does throw a few people off. I think that you've got it covered. I've got a good, strong feeling about this one, but it's a question. Simple question, but it gives people pause for thought. So the question is, future predictions, future projections in your work, in the world, in your life. What do you think is going to happen in the future?
So AI is going to be 100% embedded in everything we do, and there'll be no way around it. It's just, you're going to use it for music, you're going to use it for video production, you're going to use it for editing, you're going to use it for everything you write, just like we use Excel for math, and we never think twice about that. That's the first thing. And the second big one is the physical presence of AI with humanoid robots. That field is roaring ahead because of recursive learning and self-learning now, and reinforcement learning. And that is a game changer for robots. That means I could tell a robot to go learn how to make coffee by watching me make coffee, and it'll spill it for 3 days, but eventually it'll make coffee. It'll figure it out for itself. And so once we had reinforcement learning for robots, it's a very different thing than me programming it to make coffee. It now is programming its own deep learning model to make coffee with that coffee maker. I think they're going to take a little bit longer than people think. We've been talking about 2030. Maybe it's 2032. But we will have humanoid robots in our life and in our house, and they'll be Gen AI, so we'll be able to talk to them like a human. We'll give them names, right? It'll be Fred or whatever it is. I'm going to name mine Alex. And that's going to be a game changer. They're going to be less expensive than people think. and everyone will have someone who can do the laundry and do some cooking for you and help around the house. And that is going to free up immense amount of time. And then you say, in 2032, 33, what does that do to our lives? We've got I literally have more time to, if it's play golf or swim or exercise or read or whatever it is, because the household chores are going to head to zero, right? Just like at work with agents, our repetitive chores will head to zero, right? We're not going to do stupid repetitive things. A great example is insurance, claims processing for cars, let's say. We don't need humans to do that even now. I can send pictures, send it on my iPhone, put it into an app, upload them. I can have the money wired to me in 2 minutes. AI can make the decision on how much they're going to pay, what the cause was, are you a cheat, and send me the money or not send me the money. No humans involved. No question. We could do that now. Some people are starting. So I think that's what we're going to see. I happen to think it's a great life. It's going to be better for humans, not worse. And we're going to be relieved of all the drudgery tasks. But we're going to be thinking at a higher level to make the more strategic decisions that we want humans to make.
Kevin, do you know the origin of the word robot? Do you know where it comes from? It's a Czech word.
I should know that. You're going to tell me.
It's a Czech word, and it means forced labor. So you could argue that the origin of the word robot is slave. So I think it's like there'll be a robot rights council as well, right? Because robot, we're already using that term. Maybe someone's going to develop a new term for it.
No, you're right. I think that what we're going to see, like any other technology, is people are going to treat some robots well, and they're going to throw other robots through the window and beat them up, etc. And no, robots don't really have feelings, but they have programmed feelings, right? I mean, they can interact with us. When we built Portico, she had feelings. Not real feelings, but they were programmed. Oh, Mary, I really like you today. Oh, I like you too, Kevin. Stuff like that, right? We wanted to have that human-like interaction. And so we're going to have that with our robots, and they're going to be programmed to do that. And when we see someone beat up a robot, it'll be like beating up their dog. And you want to kill them for it, right? You can't do that. And so, just like we humanize pets, right? We do. We give them human names. We talk to them like they understand. They really don't understand much English, but nonetheless, we do the same with our robots. And so there will be examples of people beating them up and cutting their head off and doing terrible things. And then we're going to have some rules around that, because you won't be able to do that. Just like we have rules around pets. You can't cut the dog's head off because, it pissed you off today. That's, for all of us, that's simply unacceptable. It's simply unacceptable, right? Even though we don't know why that is, but that's what we've decided as a society. You don't kill your pets. You don't mistreat your pets. You're not going to be able to mistreat your robot either, and there will be rules around it. So it's going to be a fun time to invent all of this stuff, and
do you
I'm
think
going to keep
that
going.
we'll extend universal suffrage? Right? Sorry, go on. I was going to say, do you think that we'll extend universal suffrage to robots?
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
absolutely.
I said this is going to be 2030. Was your prediction 2030 or 2030?
2030 to 2032. I mean, the industry's saying 2030. Might be 1 or 2 years later before all the kinks are worked out. Look, driverless vehicles were supposed to be 2019, and here we are. It's 2026, and we finally have them in some areas, right?
Mark the date today, May 18, 2030. We'll be here on the pod.
Yes, and we'll see if we got the robot behind me dusting the shelf.
All right, Kevin, this is really cool episode today. Actually, it's really fun. Let's get you back on.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
You're doing as well.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Kevin.
Cheers.
Bye.